Okay, we're live. It's 8:30. It's a Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That means it's time for the Panther-Lair Show. I'm Chris Peak, of course, from Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's a place to get all of your Pitt sports news all day, every day. Panther-Lair.com. And of course, message boards to talk to other Pitt fans all day, every day. Pitt fans are constantly on there talking about Pitt sports, and boy, howdy, is there plenty to talk about these days. And the Pitt fans have been handling it very rationally, as you might expect in the midst of a 3-game losing streak. You can you've been here before. You've seen these situations. You know that it can get interesting. But the thing is about Pitt fans, they've always got something to talk about, and right now is certainly no exception. And so, whether it's good or bad, the most enjoyable thing to do as a Pitt fan is to talk about it. To talk about it with other Pitt fans and go hang out. And you might have a lot of Pitt fans you can text about things. There might be Pitt fans you can call up, maybe Pitt fans at the bar that you can go, hang out with and whatnot. But the message boards at Panther-Lair.com are always going to be there for you all day, every day. Pitt fans will be on there talking about Pitt sports. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. So if you want to join the conversation, go check that out. And of course, our YouTube channel here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, is a place where you can get all of our exclusive Pitt video content. We have our morning Pitt videos that we publish every day of the week, Monday through Friday. A little bit of Pitt sports talk to start your day, 20 minutes or so, just to give you a little bit of Pitt talk. I know Pitt fans are always looking for Pitt sports talk, and that's what we start your day off with on the morning Pitt. We have these weekly live shows we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And then probably my most enjoyable video production of the week is the post-game show. And maybe that's because we drink, I'm not sure, but we do. Got a new bottle of whiskey for last week's show, certainly needed it. And I don't know if we'll need it or not this week, but we're gonna drink it, have a couple beers along with it. So make sure you tune in after the games and have a drink and join the conversation. I'm thinking 8:00 game. We should be live on the post game show around 11:30 or so. Maybe we'll call it 12 for right now, and then push it back if we need to. But those are always fun to hang out and talk about the game after it happens on the live Panther-Lair post-game show here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Of course, our guy, Jim Hammett, he joins us every week from Panther-Lair.com. I think he's going to Blacksburg. James, you are going to Blacksburg. Am I correct about that?
Taking the road down south on Friday afternoon.
Oh, so you're driving on Friday?
Yeah.
Not going down Saturday morning, save yourself a night? Nothing like that?
No, I guess a good friend of the program, Noah Hiles, and I, we will be in Blacksburg on Friday. So if any Pitt fans are out and about, we also will be out and about. So
time out. Will you actually be in Blacksburg?
The hotel we're both staying at is in Radford.
Okay.
And I looked up places to go hang out in Radford, and I think the answer was to get an Uber to Blacksburg.
There's actually less to do in Radford than there is in Blacksburg, which is remarkable because there's not a lot to do. I mean, I've never been to Radford, Virginia, but how far is that from Blacksburg? I mean, is it close?
Like a half hour.
Wow, you're gonna take an Uber a half hour away, man.
Or find the best place we can possibly find to hang out in Radford.
There's along Route 114 is the Radford Army Ammunition Plant. You should go hang out there. See what you got. Well, I mean, like Radford University is a college. I mean, you're in a college town. Go hang out on campus, see what the fraternities or sororities are up to. Maybe they're going to toilet paper the dean's house or something. I mean, maybe you could join in. It sounds like fun.
Just go where the wind takes us, I guess.
Yeah, I guess this would be a game that I mean, depending on what time or depending on when I had booked my hotel, this would probably be the kind of game I would drive down for that day, given that it's a 8:00 start. You have the whole day to drive down. It's a nice drive and everything like that. But instead, I mean, we're talking about taking an Uber to Blacksburg on Friday night. You're going to have all day on Saturday in Radford. Maybe Radford has a game, actually. Hold on. Have you looked up Radford football?
No, I was looking at like James Madison's schedule or something, like maybe like catch something like that along the way. But there's NC State. That's kind of far. It's like 2 or 3 hours. So
yeah. What about JMU? I mean, are they playing?
I don't think, but the Friday NC State game was like the closest thing.
Oh, right. You know what? Radford doesn't even offer football,
I
so
thought they did.
it's not on there. I mean, Radford Athletics.
Maybe they used to.
Assuming this is the same Radford.
Where
Big
did
South.
Where did Rashad Jennings go after Pitt? Wasn't it Radford?
No, it was Liberty.
Okay.
Liberty Bibberty. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this has got to be the same Radford, and they do not list football, baseball, basketball, cross country, golf, soccer, tennis. So I don't know which one of those would be a fall sport. So you're kind of out of luck on that one. Well, all right. I mean, that would be fun if you. I mean, going to like a D3 or whatever Radford is football game on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, that could be enjoyable. That could be a nice way to spend the day. But I don't know. Anyway, Jim. I don't know where we start here. I mean, I was thinking, we could talk a little. Obviously, there's the Virginia Tech game, there's the Carolina game. Just talked to Jeff Capel and Blake Hinson and those guys for the first time today. So there's basketball as well. But, the reality is like, and maybe it's because it's just very recent, like the most recent thing to happen. But recruiting, as far as Pitt goes, has kind of sucked this week. Monday, Tyke Hayes, the 4-star running back from Aliquippa, the junior, committed to Penn State. Yesterday, Brady O'Hara, the tight end, junior from North Catholic, committed to Penn State. And then today, Eric Ingerson, 2024 senior tight end, commit to Pitt, flipped to Nebraska. And, I think if we had said on June 1st, hey, Eric Ingerson's going to flip to Nebraska, we'd all been like, yeah, of course, we expected that. But, you got to the point over the summer where he took his official visit to Pitt and he had a Nebraska official visit schedule, but he canceled it. I thought, I think they're going to actually hold on to him. Are you surprised that he ultimately ended up flipping? I mean, I think we probably kept it still in mind that he could flip. Are you surprised that it ended up happening?
I mean, I think in the past couple of days we kind of got some warning signs that this was probably heading in that direction. But I mean, a little bit, just because he went through the whole process of like reaffirming his commitment. I think even Narduzzi sent a tweet or retweeted him or something.
Right.
So they went through this whole production of like, yeah, I know Nebraska has offered me, but I'm sticking with Pitt. And he even he was at the Cincinnati game. So, I mean, he still was like, it wasn't like he was wavering all along, but I guess Nebraska was kind of always in the back of his mind. And I mean, how many Division I prospects does that state even produce? So like, if you're a Nebraska high school football player getting an offer to Nebraska, that's obviously a big deal, and there's obviously some pull there. So I get it. I mean, I think, whenever you lose a commitment and you start 1-3, everyone's like, oh, he decommitted because Pitt's losing. That's not what happened here. I mean, Pitt could have been 4-0 in this probably. Like, it's Nebraska, it's his home state. Why was he even coming to Pitt in the first place? It was a weird whatever, but like, it's easy to pile on, but like, there's going to be decommitments that happen. And I don't necessarily think they're exactly part of, the start, but I mean, it just kind of feels like it's one thing after another when you do start this way.
Yeah. I feel like I even just saw recently, like Georgia had a kid decommit. Like it's getting harder and harder to really tie it to the success, these sort of in the moment things that happen. A guy commits because the team is 10-0 or decommits because they got off to a 1-3 start. And you and I made this point on the message boards a bunch of times. It very rarely has a direct correlation or connection to what's actually happening. I mean, I think we could go find kids that have decommitted from Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan. So, these top 4 teams, top 5 teams, even they're losing guys. It's the nature of recruiting. And people are like, I can guarantee, somebody replied on Twitter, I can guarantee there's going to be more commitments. I mean, yeah, probably, or more decommitments. I mean, probably, like, you're not going to get great value on that bet, like it's pretty likely, the odds are favoring that there probably will be more decommitments because that's what happens. And it happens to most schools across the country. And, even, right off the bat, our first comment was from Brock H2P, says over under 3.5 decommitments by the end of the season, if the season keeps going how it is. I mean, if we're not counting Eric Ingerson in that group, I'm going to take the under on 3.5 decommitments from this current. If we're not counting Ingerson, I'm going to say under 3.5 on guys that are still on the commitment list now, decommitting by signing day. Just because you get you get the big June rush. I think you lose some guys over the summer, which we saw happen. You'll lose maybe 1 or 2 in the fall or in the run up to signing day, but I don't think they'll have 4 more decommitments from the current class. What they lose last year during the fall? They lost Kenny Minchie. They lost Bryce Pollock. Did they have one more? Was last year the year they had 1 or 2 offensive linemen that they like?
Colin Van Roy.
Right.
They were kind of just like,
yeah, they sort of encouraged that. Right. Was there one more? Oh, they lost. They did. They lost Philip Daniels. Was that his name?
Yeah, but then they replaced him with BJ Williams, like
right.
away.
But I mean, like in terms of decommitments, I mean,
yeah.
So that was like during the fall they lost. Technically, they had 4 guys come off the commitment list, right? So I guess it's plausible. But if we're not including Ingerson in this 3.5, then I'm taking the under the rest of the way. I mean, I guess it all depends on the individual situations. But I mean, if you're taking Brock's bet here, you're going over under 3.5 from here until signing day on decommitments from the current list.
I would say probably under as well. And like the way the question is phrased, if the season keeps going how it is, like I really don't think it, like the season at hand rarely affects the recruiting class, the current recruiting class. Like this isn't a good look for 2025. And obviously whenever Tyke Hayes and Brady O'Hara, they commit elsewhere. Yeah, like maybe that's part of it because Tyke Hayes was at the Cincinnati game and Brady O'Hara was at a bunch of games last year. I mean, like that can tie to it, but like I don't think that like kids commit like thinking like, all right, this is it. Like this is where I'm going to be, and like because we did that exercise this week. We reached out to all 22 commitments. Now there's only 21. We got a response from about like 12 of them, and they all said the same thing. It's like I expect them to be better. I'm not really worried about it. Blah blah blah. So I mean, like those. There's obviously a couple in the class you kind of wonder about, not necessarily because Pitt's doing bad. It's just because they're good prospects and they would still be pursued whether Pitt was 4-0 or 1-3.
Yeah, exactly. I almost wonder, I'm going to just kind of glance back over it as we talk here, but I bet, if we look at the 2022 recruiting class, who was the class that was, being recruited in the midst of the run to the ACC championship and all of that, I would guess, right, that they probably lost somebody during the fall, like in the midst of that run. Just kind of looking at the 2022 class. I mean, Camden Brown, right, the wide receiver.
Yeah.
Flipped to Auburn basically on signing day or a week or 2 before, and that's after the ACC championship game. You know what I mean?
And Jordan Addison winning the Blitnikoff, like
right.
As a wide receiver, like why would you want to leave?
Exactly. Jacavian Nonar, you remember that guy, that big offensive lineman who was like a prospect? I guess he decommitted in August before the season started, so maybe we don't count him. Scrolling down just to see if there was anybody else who was committed and decommitted. Like, I mean, Jordan Bailey, that was a weird situation. Maybe not too many there.
It was such a small class anyway.
Scrolling. It was a small class. That's right. And they didn't even bring that many guys in for official visits. But I mean, they still, the point being that, as you said, I mean, it rarely has like a direct correlation. I mean, if they, like my guess on, what happens the rest of the way is the same if they go 9-3 and they go 6-6 or they go 5-7. I don't think it's going to weigh too heavily. I mean, I think there can be some positive movement. I mean, but even that, so like you think about Tyke Hayes and Brady O'Hara, they went to that whiteout game on Saturday night and they end up committing to Penn State. I think they were probably always going to end up there anyway. You know what I mean? Like the whiteout game, maybe it was the final straw or something like that, but it's not like they weren't really looking at Penn State and then all of a sudden they went there. I mean, I think they were always probably going to go there. It had, I don't know. It's just it's a bigger picture than that. The official visit weekends can have that kind of impact, but the games themselves, not so much. I want to get to the super chatter, but Mark Shillaju has a comment on the recruiting. Says, what does Pitt have to do to maintain their 2024 recruits? Rumor has it one recruit was at the Penn State whiteout and is ready to flip commitments. Well, the part about attending the whiteout game, that's not a rumor. That was Cameron Lindsay, the 4-star linebacker from Aliquippa. He was there. But the rumor about being ready to flip commitments, I mean, you reached out to him, right? You were in touch with him for that reaction piece that you got. Just what do the recruits think of the first part? I mean, what did he say? He was pretty, I thought, encouraging about Pitt, right?
Well, when he talked about Pitt, he said we. So he's like, we're going to get this fixed. So, I mean, I don't think it was probably more of a product of like Penn State just hosting like any Aliquippa football player that's remotely a Division I prospect. Obviously, you don't want your recruits to go to the Penn State game. But I mean, I think didn't Deion Hayes or Kai Johnson maybe
probably.
I think
something like that.
One of them ended up at the whiteout game, but they're just like football fans going to a football game. Sometimes that happens. So I don't really think Cameron Lindsay is going to Penn State. I think they already have like 3 linebackers anyway. So I mean, I don't think like that's like an imminent thing at all. So
yeah, I agree. Let's get to Bill Florian. He's a super chatter. Remember, you guys, if you want to make sure we read your comment or answer your question, there's a lot of comments already. You can be a super chatter like Bill was. Click the little $sign down at the bottom of the chat screen, and then we'll be sure to get to your comment or your question. Bill says, getting this out of the way early, Cignetti does not put this team or the quarterbacks in a position to win or be successful. He doesn't call a good game. He calls predictable plays in predictable situations. I have issues with the offense right now. I've said this a lot of times this week. It's weird to say, but they're not running the ball enough. I don't know if you saw some of the stats, Jim, that I found. I think on the first 2 drives against North Carolina, the 2 touchdown drives, the running backs carried the ball 10 times. Do you know the total number of carries they had for the entire game off the top of your head? I know it, but I just want to see if you.
North Carolina?
North Carolina game. They scored touchdowns on the first 2 drives. The running backs carried the ball 10 times on those 2 drives combined. Do you know how many total carries they had in the game when it ended?
19?
16. Okay. Rodney Hammond had 14. Carter and Flemister had 1 carry each. So the first 2 drives, they carried the ball 10 times. The running backs had 3 more carries in the rest of the first half and 3 carries total in the second half. And they gained 32 yards on those 3 carries in the second half. Now, I understand the second half, you get the ball. By the time Pitt got the ball in the second half, they were down 18. It's obviously very tough to mount a 3-score comeback when your offense is basically the only thing you can do well is run the ball. That's tough to do. And I think it's especially tough when you have maybe 1 or 2 less possessions because of the clock rules and the clock running. But in the first half, what was the score at halftime in that game? 21-17? No, they were down 11, right? 28-17.
28-17.
So they were not down 28-17 until, I guess, 7.5 minutes to go. They scored the punt return that made it. No,
it was the drive they got pinned down at the 9.
That's right.
They got sacked at the 2.
The left-handed touchdown pass. So it's, you are down by 1 score until the final minute of the half. To run the ball only 3 times in your final 5 possessions of the half makes no sense to me at all. It's amazing. And like Bill talks about, their offense is predictable. And I know everybody in the stands can predict when it's going to be a run and which way they're going and all this stuff, but they're actually okay at running when they do it. They just don't do it. And it was one thing, the Cincinnati game, they had 6 carries for each of the backs. But West Virginia, there was no reason to go away from the run in that game. North Carolina, eventually you were going to have to go away from the run because Drake May was going to get up 3 scores on you. But you never needed to go away from the run that early. This team, they don't have the passing attack that you can just start throwing it around in the first half. They have to get a lead, they have to play with a lead, and they have to lean on the run. And that's right now. I got issues all over the place with this offense, but right now, that's one of my biggest issues is a Frank Cignetti, Pat Narduzzi team is somehow not running the ball enough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think we were clamoring for them to run the ball more. I think we were saying they should give it to Rodney Hammond more, and they've started to go that direction. But I mean, 14 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. That's a really good game, but it's that's a half. He needs 20 to 25 touches. So I think they can do it. And I mean, obviously, predictable or not, that's what they're going to do this weekend because Virginia Tech has the 122nd rush defense in the country. They're giving up 212 yards a game. So there's not going to be any secret what Pitt's going to try to do. 1, because that's what they should do. And 2, that's what, the defense is going to dictate. I mean, Virginia Tech's not good at stopping the run. Pitt should be able to run the ball. Yeah.
According to Pro Football Focus, Rodney Hammond played 47 snaps on offense in that game. Sebo Flemister played 14 and Daniel Carter had 1 snap, the play he scored the touchdown on. And Hammond was basically, it's if you look at snaps, the top guys are the basically the offensive linemen, Bear, Moore, Taylor, and Zabovic all played every snap. Then you have Bub Means and Kanate Mumfield. Jason Collier was in there, but BJ Williams played like 8 snaps, so he took away some of Collier's numbers. And then Bartholomew. And then after that, it's Rodney Hammond. I mean, he played a ton of snaps. So they did sort of isolate on him. Of course, he got hurt at the end of the game, which was not ideal. Not good for you and I and our constant clamoring that he's not injury prone, that he goes out and gets his biggest workload of the year and gets hurt. At least biggest workload in terms of snaps played. So they did seem to focus on him, even though I'm a big Sebo guy and I think Sebo's good and all that stuff. I mean, they did focus on him and that was good, but they just went away from the run too soon. What about Phil Dracovic in this game? He finished, 11 of 15 or something like that?
11 of 15, 109 yards.
9. Yeah. I thought, okay. What would you think?
Generally fine. I mean, like those first 2 drives, they looked really sharp. I mean, I know they ran the ball a lot, but like he still had to hit a couple throws. I mean, they weren't always perfect. I mean, that one throw to Bartholomew was kind of an adventure in the air, but it got there and, Gavin made the catch and they got down to the 2-yard line. So, I mean, like there were still good moments for him. When you score, it's just, they scored 2 offensive touchdowns in the game and they were the first 2 drives of the game. So yeah, you could come away from that and feel encouraged for sure. But, it got weird after that. I mean, it was 3 and out, -1 yards, 3 and out, -23 yards, the next 2 possessions. So it's it got bad in a hurry, but again, that's kind of play calling. I mean, why are you throwing 6 straight downs?
Yeah. Exactly. And like the -23, they decided to go with BJ Williams on that drive. Dracovic tried to run on first down. On second down, Williams gave up a pressure and forced a bad throw from Dracovic. And then on third down, that was the play where Branson Taylor really kind of had a great play here. He jumps early. Must have thought he got whistled for false start because he never attempted to. He didn't really block anybody, and Dracovic ends up getting sacked for 21 yards, and then they give up the punt return touchdown. It's like, wow, you got it all wrong on that one.
Yeah.
As far as predictability, I'll speak to Bill's point about predictability because there were a couple plays in there that stood out to me. You sit next to me the games, you see all the things I write down and the notes and the legal pad and all that stuff. It's excessive and borderline obsessive. But I do write down when they're under shotgun or in the shotgun or under center, and they pretty much were like, they ran sometimes out of shotgun, usually under center. They were running almost all the time. But when they hit Bartholomew with that 30-yard pass you're talking about, they were under center and ran play action and ended up with like a 30-yard completion. They did it like 2 drives later after the -23 drive. They hit Bartholomew for a 29-yard pass. Again, line up under center, play action, pass to the tight end. Like, you can be predictable, and sometimes being predictable is not the worst thing because you can play on those tendencies. You can play on that predictability and use play action, which is I look at the numbers on Pro Football Focus, and they're still not using it very much. And it's like, everybody knows you want to run. You might as well try to take advantage of that a little bit, unless the concern is that, when you run play action, the quarterback turns his back to the receivers. So, he has to sort of process the information quicker. So maybe you make it like a 1-read thing or something. But I just keep coming back to the idea that this offense, they just need pare it down, simplify, run it, play action, easy passes. Don't try to get complicated. Don't try to take deep shots. Just, you got to move the ball. You got to move the ball downfield, and you have to win ugly. And, if they come out of this game again at Virginia Tech winning 26-14 and it's a mess and Ben Sauls kicks like 9 field goals, or I guess, that math doesn't add up, but 8 field goals and they get a safety. I mean, that's fine. I mean, you have to do whatever you can just to get wins right now. And, if you had previous ideas about how you were going to make this offense go, like, you need to hone in on the things that actually work, because there's a whole hell of a lot of things that are not working right now. And maybe like a handful of things that are, I keep saying Hammond, Mumfield, Bartholomew, right? They have to be the 3 main guys, don't they?
I think so. But I mean, I think Kenny Johnson made a case for like, he might be that 4th.
He's getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he had the longest play of the season. I mean, he's explosive. So I think it's worth getting him the ball a little bit more. And, we heard so much about him during camp. And, it just kind of seemed like he was just going to step right in and be a big part of the offense. They kind of brought him along slowly, but like last week he was on the field. Like he was part of the offense, like in the first quarter on those first 2 drives, like he was rotating in. So I think he's going to be a bigger part of the offense. And I mean, they just need weapons. They need guys that can make plays. And I think he's someone that can do it. So, I mean, we keep talking about those 3 guys. It wouldn't, I think Bub Means somehow can make plays. And I think Kenny Johnson can too. So, if you get more players on the field that can do something productive, then good things should happen. So I'm with you. I think the offense, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. I know people complain about Cignetti and what do you want in their next offensive coordinator. I think they could have success with what they have right now. I think they just need to commit to the things they're good at.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and Johnson, like he played season high snaps. I think he played 20 offensive snaps on Pro Football Focus. I don't know if you caught this from Narduzzi, Pat Narduzzi on Monday. He talked about Christian Bear's first interception, that it was thrown into the end zone and Johnson sort of like slowed up on his route a little bit and allowed the interception to happen. If he kept running, Narduzzi said if he ran as fast on that route as he ran on the kickoff return, it's probably a touchdown for Pitt as opposed to a turnover. So I think that, that things like that will hurt his cause, but I do think they're going to keep bringing him along slowly. Cause I mean, he makes the kickoff return. He, looks pretty good on a couple jet sweeps. Like it seems like you could probably get him more involved in the passing game, but there again, like, I mean, you just got to get back to basic. Like what would be an acceptable number of targets for Alberto on like a game? He's averaging 3 targets per game right now. He has 12 targets through 4 games, which last year he ended up with exactly 36 targets. So if they play 12 games, he would be, right at that same number. If they play 13, he would be on pace for more. What would to you would be an acceptable number of targets for Gavin Bartholomew on a game by game basis?
I mean, I would think 6 to 8, like even more. But I'm thinking of it this way: like Pitt ran 61 offensive plays last week. How many passing attempts do you really want them to have in a given game? 20? Like what should the ratio be right now?
Yeah. That's but if okay, but let's say if they're throwing 20 passes, I do want like 6 to 8 of them going to Alberto. I really do. Like where else is the ball going to go? You could give Konate Mumfield 8 targets, you know what I mean, or 6 targets. You could give each of those guys 6 targets, and I think that would be good. And you still have another 8 that who you've been throwing it to. 3 to the running backs, 2 to Bub Means, and
Day Reynolds has not been bad.
No, he's been okay. Somebody actually just mentioned, Mark Showju actually just mentioned, seems to me like Dejon Reynolds is a more reliable than Means. Is it time to elevate him to number 2 receiver? Number 2, number 1, number 3. I don't know what all of that, equates to. He played, according to Pro Football Focus, 34 snaps, which was the 3rd most among the receivers. Means and Mumfield were 57 and 56 respectively. So he was quite a bit off that pace. I mean, honestly, like if it's me, like, sure, I guess you could get Mumfield and Reynolds or Mumfield and Johnson. As long as Mumfield, Bartholomew, and Hammond are on the field, I kind of don't care who the other 2 skill guys are. Put Carter Johnson out there. Put Kenny Johnson out there. Put Reynolds. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. It's just those guys have to be out there because they're the ones through 4 games who have shown themselves to be reliable to make plays, yes, but also just do something productive. You know what I mean? It does, like, never mind, like, I mean, the 30-yard passes are nice, but like even just hitting Gavin Bartholomew for 9 yards in the flat is a pretty good way to start a drive if you can do that consistently. And I think it's, you can't overload it with options. You know what I mean? I think it's got to be quicker hitting offense. It's got to be fewer targets and fewer possibilities and fewer reads, and just focus in on your main guys. And Kenny Johnson, I think, will get there. I think by the end of October, he'll be playing more than 20 snaps per game. I think he'll be getting a lot of work. But for now, it's just, I don't know. It's just those guys, I think. I don't know. Is there anybody else? I guess Reynolds, but 2, what do you want to give him? 2 targets? 3 targets? I mean, how many targets should he get out of those 20?
You're probably right with 2 or 3. I mean,
all right.
Yeah.
Give him 2 or 3, give the running backs 2 or 3, give Kenny Johnson 2 or 3, and like Mumfield and Alberto
over half,
6 or 7 each. I mean, just Just keep doing it. And if somehow they take those two guys away, then they're dedicated a lot of defense to it. And maybe you can run the ball, or you can throw to, Dejon Reynolds or Kenny Johnson or somebody like that. Who scores a touchdown first this season? Rest of the way. Kenny Johnson or Bub Means? I mean, rest of the way.
I just off of snap count alone, I'm going to have to go with Bub Means. He's out there. There's a chance.
Yeah. I mean, sort of.
He's off field, yeah.
He only has 6 catches. So, he only has 4 more catches than Kenny Johnson at this point. So it's not like he's drastically out producing him. I wonder about that. I just, for some reason, he just can't get in the end zone. What did he have last year? 2 touchdown catches? I mean,
yeah, I think he had one against Virginia, and I'm trying to think the other one.
Yeah, he had the Virginia win. I forgot what his other one was, but I think he had 2. He just, I don't know, all the physical talents, and it just doesn't seem to come together. I don't know. You have that kind of physical skill. It's like, it's disappointing that you can't like put it together. He probably needs somebody like specific to like work with him, somebody to like really help him focus on, I don't know, the kind of coaching that he needs. He should get an online coach, like an online fitness coach, like Chris Gates, because tonight and every Wednesday night's live show is sponsored by Chris Gates Fitness. Chris is an online fitness coach, as most people know. He's a huge Pitt fan, and he works with people all over Pittsburgh and the world to build muscle, burn fat, and develop healthy lifestyle habits. Now, if you have a health or fitness goal, you need help achieving it, you should definitely check out chrisgatesfitness.com to learn more about Chris, his coaching program, and how you two can work together to build a fully personalized training and nutrition program that works. One of the biggest things Chris helps his clients with is to eliminate a lot of the guesswork, because oftentimes you need someone by your side to help support you, encourage you, and make sure that you're moving in the right direction. Doing the same things over and over again rarely leads to different or better results, but that's often what folks do. You try to work out the way you did in college, or eat the way you did when you lost 20 pounds a decade ago. Kind of like running the ball 15 straight times to start a football game. Chris, I wish they would run the ball 15 times to start a football game, or constantly throwing the ball to the wrong receiver. Now you're talking my language. If you keep doing it, the results aren't going to be good. Now, Chris can help you build a program tailored to you in the most effective way possible. He can help you minimize mistakes and maximize your progress. Everything will be aimed at your goals, and it'll fit within your daily lifestyle so that you can make progress and actually maintain it long term. So if that sounds good to you, head over to chrisgatesfitness.com and submit your application. We once joked about Chris helping out Blake Hinson. Blake lost like 25 pounds or something like that. I think he has said that before, or maybe Jeff Capel was the first one to actually say it today. But I mean, the guy really looks slimmed down. I think you watched some of that Spain game, right? The one that made it onto YouTube. Did you watch some of that?
Yeah, I saw some clips. And
and they've tweeted out videos and photos and things like that. I mean, he's in good shape. I don't know if he can carry the load that they're going to expect him to carry this year, but I'm sure interested to find out about this basketball team. Not to switch over to basketball completely, because I think there's more football to discuss, but just because we talked to Jeff Capel and Blake Hinson and Federico today, I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued by what this team is going to become between Hinson, the transfer of Zach Austin, and then these freshman guards. It's never ideal to rely on freshmen, particularly at the guard spots, but these guys might be pretty good. These freshman guards might be pretty good. What's your level of intrigue? And I'll add the caveat that, like, I didn't even remember where to walk in the Peterson Event Center today. My mind is so far apart from basketball. Like, I walked in and started going to the elevator, and the girl was like, "Oh, you can just go down the steps over there." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right."
Yeah.
So, like, my head's not entirely around basketball at this point, but because we talked to them today, I figured we could bring it up. What's your level of intrigue with these guys right now?
I think it's pretty high. I mean, just because, like, I think that the Twins are just so interesting, and I really think like Guillermo can be a really, really good basketball player. So I kind of want to, they talked about them adding all this weight this year, so I'm kind of interested to see what they look like. And Blake Hinson as the number one option, and these, the freshman guards, and see how the transfers come together. It's so hard now, because like I remember like the rugged Big East years, like the mid 2000s, like you knew everyone on every team, and you knew all the recruiting classes, and you knew the coaches, and you knew exactly how they played. Every year in college basketball, it takes a month or two to get acquainted to everyone, even the team we cover. Like, like I didn't know what to expect with last year's team, and like they came out and they beat the crap out of Fairleigh Dickinson and looked pretty good. Then they lost to West Virginia by 30 2 days later. So
Yeah,
it's so different now, just because they're going to start a couple transfers. They're probably going to start a freshman, like. But at least this year's team, you know what Blake Hinson is, you know what Fetty is, and you know the Twins are pretty good and probably improve. So it's just so different now because like those Big East years, it's like you knew everyone. It was kind of cool. Like in a college sport where guys only have that 4-year window, you felt like you know everyone. It's like, oh, Luke Herringoti's back for Notre Dame again. It's like things like that.
Yeah. Well, that's what was funny when they announced the schedule the other day. Yesterday, I guess it was. Yesterday, the day before, I forget. And I was like looking through, I was like, is this a tough schedule? And I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea if this is a tough schedule. I'm like, Duke is good. I know that. And I know they play Duke twice in like 11 days or 12 days, but like, is this a tough schedule? Is it not? I have no idea. And I think even some of the teams that we think will be good won't be. And some of the teams we don't think will be good will be. And like, I couldn't tell you, what stood out to me the most about the schedule is that they have finals week in December, like midway through December. So they get that week off. And then the ACC, schedules like 2 basically bye weeks during the regular season. And their first ACC bye week is like January 9th to 16th. They get a week off there. And then their second one is February like 7th to 13th or something like that. So basically it sets up that they get a week off in December. They get a week off in January. They get a week off in February. And they're actually kind of spread out nicely. And I think that's actually good. It was 2 years ago, I think, or maybe 3. I think it was 2 years ago. Their second bye week was like the last week of the season. So it just ended up like they didn't have a Saturday game. And I remember Jeff Cable being like, this is not good. We're just playing like nonstop here. Like giving us a bye week in the last day of the season doesn't really help all that much. I think this is a much better arrangement than that. And I think it actually lined up nicely. They play like 3 weeks and then they get a week off. They play like 3 weeks and they get a week off. And then, kind of that same way throughout. So I think that's good. Otherwise, that Clemson game on December 3rd, I think we expected there to be some ACC game that weekend because there was a hole in the non-conference schedule. Duke, basically 2 out of 3 games, but they have the break in there. That January break is in there. That's tough though, facing Duke that much. But I don't know. Anything else jump out to you about the ACC schedule? It's like I said, it's just so hard to even gauge when you don't know who these teams are or what they're going to be like.
No, I mean, I guess, yeah, like the weird Clemson game, which it's like on a Sunday at 2:00, like in the middle of December. Like that's like
the Steelers have a game that day too.
I was going to ask.
They're at 1:00. Yeah,
that's going to make things interesting for the crowd. I mean, the zoo will be there, but I don't. Then they play Syracuse, I think, right before New Year's Day. It's like December 30th or something. They kind of did that last year.
December 30th. Yep.
That was like one of their big early season wins. They went up to the Dome, and that was like kind of right before the season ramped up. So it'll be interesting going to Syracuse and no Jim Boeheim on the sideline. So again, we knew the 31 teams they were going to play this year. It's just now we got the order.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing. We were talking about this today before Jeff Cable talked to the media that they have Carolina here. It's on January 2nd, which is like Tuesday. Yeah. I looked at Pitt's calendar. Like the dorms don't even reopen until January 6th. So like there aren't going to be students around for that game. Like kids who live on campus.
Yeah, that's what happened last year because they
was
played
it with Carolina. Or?
Yeah, they played North Carolina the same day as the Sun Bowl. So I was there, and I think you were watching the football game.
Yeah.
But like there weren't a ton of students there. There weren't a ton of like anyone there, just because it was like. Then they tried to do a watch party after the game.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So that's like the second year in a row they get like a huge marquee, like potentially top 25 game, and like the students won't be there.
Yeah, and I mean you're right. Carolina played on December 30th. It was a Friday. It was like a Friday afternoon, right? It wasn't even like a night game or something.
Well, it was before the Sun Bowl was at 2, so it was Friday at noon.
Probably like a noon game, right? And that is too bad. And then they had Virginia at home on January 3rd. I'm guessing the students weren't there for that either. That's unfortunate to get. I mean, Carolina would be like a marquee team that would draw people out for that, and to not have the students around is pretty pretty disappointing. But all right, let's see. Let's get into some comments and questions. We'll switch back over to football. Byron Fleck wants to know, when is the Pittsburgh media going to tell us how much Pitt's players and recruits are getting from NIL? Seems a critical element in recruiting, holding on to players. Thanks. Jim, I think the date, is it January 17th? Is that when the media is going to tell how much the players are getting from the NIL? I forget what we agreed on. Noah Hiles is always putting together the dates on that. Planning when we're going to announce things. No, so this is a big issue with NIL, right? Is the lack of transparency. Some things filter out, some things leak out, sometimes contracts get put out there by agents, but ultimately there's no real transparency in the NIL deals. And so, Byron, to answer your question, I mean, we're not really reporting on that stuff because that stuff's not really out there. You can pick up rumors and things like that, but it's not like an NFL contract or something that is sort of publicly available or readily available to reporters. So we're not reporting it because we don't really have access to that information. I think that's one of the movements afoot, is to try to create more transparency so that the marketplace is a little bit more established and a little more stable. But I mean, if the suggestion is that Pitt is not active in NIL, I would disagree about that. I think they're very active in NIL. I think they're very active in NIL with recruits and with current players. I think players they hold on to. I think transfers that they go get. I think they're doing what they can. I think more support is needed. I think Alliance 412 needs more Pitt fans to get involved and to step up. And I mean, this is not an ad for them, although if they want to sponsor the show, we can, I can certainly be reached in any number of ways. But they need more Pitt fans to participate. And it's sort of like a situation where they need the fans to just kind of put the money in. And then the collective sort of figures out how to distribute that money. But it is happening. It's just, it could always be on a larger scale. And that's what they're working toward right now,
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing, just even across the country, not even with Pittsburgh, it's like, it's almost like taboo still, like to talk about NIL with like whenever we do like interviews with recruits and like stuff like that. Like I don't know, it's not like something that gets like totally brought up. But then like because of the secrecy, numbers inflate and rumors get started. Because I think like, who's the UCLA quarterback? Moore or Dante?
Yeah.
Moore?
Yeah.
And
I forget his name.
He was like the number one recruit, and like
right.
Supposedly he got all this money. He got to campus, and like his first interview, he's like, I did not get that much money. Like, I don't know where this number came from. This is not true. So, I mean, like, just like the whole, like, I think it's still in its infant stage, like its second, third year. It's like, nobody really knows what it is just yet. I mean, it's starting to become more out in the open, but like, the reason we haven't reported on it is because we don't know the numbers.
Right.
I'm curious myself.
Yes, very much so. Very much, very, very curious to see what some of these things are, because also, and I think coaches want transparency in the things so that they don't have a recruit who's coming in and saying, sitting down on his visit and be like, hey, coach, this school over here offered me 500,000. Well, if there's transparency and there's a database and there's sort of a record of these things, you can find out and be like, no, man, they gave you 5,000. You know what I mean? Like, they offered you, a pack of Slim Jims or something like that. Not, so it could be a little bit more balanced, a little bit more of a, reasonable marketplace. Bill Florgen wanted to let you know, Jim, that he's also going down to the game, that his in-laws have a lake house near Blacksburg at Smith Mountain Lake. So hit him up. So get in touch with Bill.
You got it, Bill.
Peter Berlin says, any update on Kamara? My guess is we won't see him. I don't know that for a fact. I don't think we'll see him on Saturday. I think Phil Dracovic will play. I don't think Kamara will play. I'm guessing Jake Cradle doesn't play. These are just sort of my guesses. I'm not really basing this on, we really don't get to see any practice during the season. And so I'm not basing it on anything like that. It's just sort of my guess on reading the tea leaves on certain things. Obviously the linebackers have to be better than they were. Kyle Lewis, being rather young, needs to improve, but I'm still pretty bullish on that group overall, both short-term and long-term. And I think having Kamara out there would obviously be better than not having him out there, but any rep Kyle Lewis gets, I think, is a good one because it helps his development and progression,
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised with Kyle Lewis, even before like the starting last week. Like, he was getting on the field, and I thought he was doing some good things. And it's good for him because he missed so much of last year. It's not that he was redshirted; he was hurt. Right. So I mean, like that, he missed the whole year of development. So that the fact that he was able to pick up things so quickly, and he's already a factor on the field, and I mean, then like Braylon Lovelace is getting some action, like Jordan Bass is getting some special teams reps. So like I think I'm with you. I think the linebackers for the future, I think that's a good thing, but I would guess no Kamara this weekend. I would guess no Jake Cradle this weekend, but I am expecting Phil Dracovic to start.
Yeah. Mark Shillaju says, assuming this team will not reach 6 wins, is it time to start giving younger guys meaningful reps in the games? So as I read this question, I'm reading this question before I clicked it up here. And as I'm reading it, you are talking about Braylon Lovelace. You're talking about Kyle Lewis. I started thinking about like Sam Okunlola. I started thinking about Javon McIntyre and Donovan McMillan. I think younger guys are playing and not playing in a state of surrender. They're playing because they're needed and they're hopefully ready to go. My thing is this though, like people talk about that. They'll say like, oh, just, you might as well just get the younger guys out there and get some meaningful reps. But I guarantee you will not like it if they just roll a bunch of freshmen out there. Like you will not like sacrificing games to get younger players reps. And it's not some guarantee that you would lose to Virginia Tech if you roll the younger players out there, whoever other younger players, I guess Isaiah Neal and Sean Fitzsimmons. I don't know, which I mean, Fitzsimmons will play when he's healthy. I mean, he's going to be in the rotation, but like you can say, might as well just get a guy out there and see what he can do. But then once it actually happens and what he can do is not very good, it becomes a whole lot less, it's one thing to say, but then to watch it, it's kind of like with the defense as a whole, that it was very easy for us to say in May and June, like, defense is going to probably struggle early on. It's going to take a little while for them to get going. And, we know this, it's just going to, you're going to have to suffer through some mistakes and stuff. And it was one thing, and we all sort of said it and agreed it on it, and it was great in May. But now that it's happening, it's like, oh, this is pretty unpleasant to watch. And I think their defense has actually been fine. I really don't have, Drake May did to them what he would have done to the 2021 defense, the 2019 defense, last year's defense. I don't take much out of that. I think the first half against Cincinnati, they gave up a bunch in the run game, but they pretty much locked it down after that. I think they were pretty good against West Virginia, and they did about whatever they could against Drake May. I think they'll have a run of pretty solid games here defensively, and I'm not really feeling too much concern about that side of the ball. Are you?
No, I mean, I even against like last week, like I know they gave up 41 points, but I guess one was a punt return, so 34 points. I mean, like North Carolina is going to like average like 500 yards a game, and they were like 370.
Yeah,
and like Drake May was like making like crazy throws, and like every like low percentage sideline catch North Carolina seemingly made. Like there was just like a lot of like they did a lot of good things, and it's like they just had like an NFL quarterback beat them. The only thing to Mark's point, like the one position on the field that like no young guy is playing, and I get why they're not, but like it's going to be interesting next year is cornerback.
Yeah,
like I have no idea who's going to be the starting cornerbacks next year because they only play 3 seniors right now. so like that's like the one position where I'm like, you know what, it wouldn't hurt to maybe get like Rylan Gandy a series here and there.
Yeah, Rylan Gandy would probably be a good thing to see out there. I don't even know. I mean, Gandy and Crumpley, Noah Bigelow. I mean, Shadarian Harrison. I don't know who they're going to go with, but whoever it is will have zero experience when they set foot on the field next year. You're right. That's a bit of a concern. Mark Shillaju says, you just mentioned the left-handed touchdown pass by Drake May. Did Pat Narduzzi mention or say anything about the obvious offensive pass interference on the play? Yeah, he said it right after the game, didn't he? Didn't he mention it in the post game?
Yeah, and he voiced his displeasure with the referees after the game and a little bit on Monday. He didn't get into specifics, but he didn't seem too happy with them, and there was definitely some calls I could see why.
Yeah, there was some. I mean, I think you're going to have that against North Carolina. Somehow they still seem to play in these kind of games where they get the calls. But yeah, he definitely he bit his tongue, but only so much. He didn't want to bite all the way through. He just he nibbled on his tongue, I guess. Still let a few things fly. Mark also asked, Sean Watson was fired after 2 years. Mark Whipple was basically run out after the ACC championship season. Do you think Cignetti is on borrowed time? I keep saying this. Like, Mark, the only offensive coordinator under Pat Narduzzi who's made it more than 2 years was supposed to be gone after 2 years. Like Mark Whipple wasn't supposed to have a third year, and he only got a third year because Kenny Pickett was coming back. Offensive coordinators don't last long in this particular Pitt football program under its current leadership. It's just the case. And so to me, it was always, no matter what happened last year or this year, there was always a question of how long Frank Cignetti would last, if he would make it more than 2 years. That was always something I kind of had in my head from the time he was hired. Now, the fact that their offense has been pretty much, I had a lot of words just go through my head. I'm going to settle on not good for the last 2 years, for last year and this year so far, only sort of heightens the feeling of like, well, yeah, you've got a situation where OCs don't typically last long, and you've got an offense that's not performing it very well at all. Is he on borrowed time? I don't know, but I don't think you would get great odds on, you wouldn't get great value if you bet on him to be gone after the season. That's not any inside info. That's just looking at very realistic side of things of Pitt's history with OCs under Narduzzi and what the offense has been this year.
Yeah. So 2018, Sean Watson, Pitt was 98th in total offense, and he lost his job. Currently, Pitt is 116th in total offense. So if 98 wasn't good enough to keep your job, what's happening right now isn't either. So he has 8 games to kind of fix some things, but otherwise history's not on his side. I think we've said that a few times.
Yep. I agree. Morvin Carrier. I apologize if I mispronounced your first name there, but he's a super chatter, so we want to get to him. It says, we've seen 5 quarterbacks operate this offense. What do you think is the root cause of our issues? Play calling, scheme, O-line, quarterback scouting, coaching, bad receivers. 5 quarterbacks. So that's what? Slovis, Yarnell, Patty, Dracovic, Vare. Wait, before we get to this question, rank those 5 based on their performances in this offense over the last 2 years, the last 17 games.
All right. Vare 5.
Okay, that's easy.
That was an easy one.
Yep.
Jerkovic 4, based on performance.
Well, he had arguably the worst game I've ever seen by a quarterback. So I guess, yeah, he probably should put that number 4. I would agree.
Patty 3?
Ooh, you're going to rile people up with that one.
I know, he's everyone's
putting him behind Keaton Slovis. Ooh.
Then I guess Keaton too, and like Nate Yarnell had like almost a perfect game.
It was near flawless. I mean, he really didn't make any mistakes. He led a win on the road. If Phil Dracovic was out for this game, right? And I agree with you. I think he's going to play. But if he was out for this game at Virginia Tech, you've seen one full game of Nate Yarnell. You've seen a half plus a couple passes against Wofford from Christian Vare. Who would you start? If Jim offensive coordinator, Jim Hammett, who are you starting at quarterback in Blacksburg? You sticking with Vare?
I might go Yarnell. I think I would. I mean, to get an to feel good about trying to get a win Saturday. Not saying anything like who's going to start next year, but like if the circumstances where they need to get a win on Saturday, I think I would go with Nate Yarnell over Christian Vare if the circumstance called for
it. The biggest thing they need right now is from their quarterback is to not turn the ball over. No interceptions. You know what I mean? Like that is the biggest thing. They killed them at West Virginia. Vare did it twice in the second half against North Carolina. Don't turn the ball over. A game plan like they had at Western Michigan probably wins them the West Virginia game, probably wins them this week, as long as the quarterback doesn't turn the ball over. Last year at Western Michigan, Yarnell was 9 of 12 for 179 and a touchdown. And most importantly, no interceptions. This team cannot afford to play from behind. They cannot try to manufacture a comeback, and they can't give the ball up via turnovers, via interceptions. And so right now, I've got a very small sample size of Nate Yarnell and an only slightly larger sample size of Christian Vare, but one of them has thrown a whole bunch more interceptions than the other. So I'm going with a guy who has not turned the ball over. I'm going with a guy who I can build a run-heavy offense with less than 20 passes and I can trust him not to turn the ball over. I think I would do that too. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that Veer is a turnover machine, but what did he throw? 18 passes, on Saturday, and 2 of them were intercepted. I mean,
and 2 more of them probably should have been.
Yeah. He had with Pro Football Focus. He had what they call turnover-worthy plays. He had several turnover-worthy plays. All right, but to the question, 5 quarterbacks operate this offense. What is the root cause of the issues? I mean, I don't think you can ever just say there's one. I do think the scheme is a problem. I do think the offensive line has been an issue at times. I do think the quarterback play has been an issue at times. And a lot of times those things are tangled together. The receivers have been a problem. I mean, I think there are a lot of things behind it. The sum total, though, is that it's not working. It's just not working for whatever reason. And so you change whatever you can change. You can't fire all 5 offensive linemen into the sun, right? And you're probably not going to jettison all of the quarterbacks on the roster. You have to change what you can change. And kind of along those lines, Scott Traverso says, so if the odds aren't in Cignetti's favor to return, what kind of offensive coordinator should they look to hire in the offseason? And I mean, we're probably getting way ahead of ourselves here, especially with only about 3 or 4 minutes left on the live stream. My thing, because we talk about this on the message boards all the time, the people talk about what kind of OC, and there are those out there who want the young hot shot 27-year-old play caller from wherever, 1AA or G5. Yeah, UNLV. UNLV has scored 15 offensive touchdowns this year. Did you know that? With Brian Marion as the OC. Yeah. And Pitt has scored 11. So they are outscoring Pitt. But that 15 offensive touchdowns, only 1 passing score, which I thought was interesting. And, yes, they scored 40 on Vanderbilt or something like that, but they had a punt return for a touchdown and a ton of field goals. So they're, 15 touchdowns in 4 games versus 11 touchdowns in 4 games. That's the difference of what? 4 total touchdowns. So it's a difference of 1 touchdown per game, I guess.
Yeah.
Roughly. So yeah, they've been better. They've also played a lighter schedule, but I'm getting off track here. What I think they want, what I think Pat Narduzzi would want if he has to get a new offensive coordinator, and what I think he probably should get if he has to get a new offensive coordinator, someone who will run a balanced offense. I mean, I think balance is okay. I think balance is an okay thing to look for. I think it's okay to still try to establish the run, but you just need to have someone who can tailor the offense to his quarterback, maybe not be so hell-bent on this pro style offense with all these reads and stuff like to use the phrase, maybe just find someone who will run a one-word offense. Yeah. I don't think that's a bad idea to shift in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Pitt's always going to have an identity of running the ball. I think I think, part of it in college football is kind of regionally, how you recruit. A lot of the Big 12 teams play that way because all the high school teams play that way out there. There's not you don't go out on a Friday night in Western Pennsylvania and see 5 wide, crazy offense. It doesn't happen that way. So, I mean, I think Pitt's always going to have a running identity. I mean, 2 of their better recruits in this class are running backs. So, I mean, yeah, you can be balanced, but you can be balanced in the way you were in 2021. You have a good running back in Izzy Abanikanda, but you still press the ball downfield. So, I mean, he's always going to cater or look for that exact, balance, but you can be successful being balanced. I mean,
yeah,
Frank Cignetti just hasn't been so far.
No. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, but the end result is the same. I'm trying to scroll through here and see if there's anything else we want to, Homer Simpson says if Pitt doesn't win on Saturday, we might not win in Power 5 football. Might not win a Power 5 football game this year. I mean, I don't disagree with that because Virginia Tech is bad. And if they can't beat Virginia Tech, even though it's on the road and it's at night and all that stuff, I expect them to win this game. I really do. I mean, what's your confidence level here, Jim? 1 to 10.
I think they're going to win. I mean, I think Virginia Tech stinks, but it's going to be a tough environment. And there's, Pitt's didn't look all that great against West Virginia in a tough environment, but
yeah,
I think they can win. Virginia Tech's not good. They're a couple years away from Brent Pry getting this thing figured out. So
they're a couple of years away from their next coach.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I look at it like, and I mean, there's this game. I think there's Boston College. They look bad. I think Wake Forest looks pretty vulnerable. If you can win those 3 games, you're at 4 wins now. And I think if you can kind of figure out a few things, you're still not going to be great or dynamic or dominant, but if you can figure out a few things, you should be able to win those 3 games. And then you look to take 2 out of 3 against Louisville, Syracuse, and Duke. You know, Pat Narduzzi's like, 14-1 against Duke and Syracuse.
Yeah.
You know, like Duke needs to beat Pat Narduzzi before I believe that Duke will beat Pat Narduzzi. And I know we got close last year. I know that was a close game and all that. And Syracuse has had some close games and they beat Pat Narduzzi in 2017. But like, I need to see it before I believe it. He's still 2-1 against Louisville, even though he lost to them last year. Louisville looks like they're rolling. All 3 of those teams are 4-0 right now, but I'm not chalking them up as automatic losses. If you could take 2 out of 3, now you got 6 wins. You know what I mean? Now you're bowl eligible. So I don't know, but we're getting pretty far ahead of ourselves. Virginia Tech. You got a score prediction. Let's end on that. You got a score prediction for Saturday night?
Let's say 27-17.
27-17. Okay. I like that. I might go 23-12. It's going to be ugly.
What's the line right now? It's like Pitt -3.
Is it?
Something like that. 2.5, 3.
Bring up the old trusty ESPN website. It typically has the lines here. Pitt 2.5 on 2.5 according to ESPN. I don't know who their book is, but they also have the over under at 39.5.
Oh man, I mean that's realistic though.
Every other ACC game is at least 51 points. The over under. Pitt Virginia Tech is 39.5. Now I'm looking through the top 25 games. There's some in the 40s here. Over under in USC Colorado 73.5. They're probably assuming. Oh, here
right now.
Nebraska at Michigan over under 39. But they might be expecting like a 39-0 blowout. 39-0 win there. Yeah, nobody else is really that low. There's a few and there's a lot in the 60s actually in the top 25, but that's the only game that's sub 40. You taking over or under 39.5 points in this game?
Well, I guess my score prediction.
Oh yeah,
I'm at 44. So.
Oh yeah, I was. What did I say? 23-12. So I guess I'm taking the under.
Yeah, you're there.
I think it'll be ugly. I think it'll be low scoring, but I think they'll win. And by golly, that's good enough. All right, Jim. Thanks so much for your time tonight. Glad you could hang out. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and shared the comments and questions. It's been fun as always. Time flies. During these hours of live streams. But don't forget, we have the live stream after the game on Saturday night. That'll be a lot of fun. Tune in for the post game there. And then the morning pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Check out the website, Panther-Lair.com. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And have a good Wednesday night. Have a good rest of the week. And we will talk to you with the morning pit tomorrow and the live stream on Saturday.